Hello, I'm Mrs. Tyler. I'm your child's class teacher and I'm here today to talk to you more about the information that you will need for the assessments that your child will be sitting during Key Stage 1. Okay, so the first assessment that your child will sit will be the Phonics Screening that was due to take place in the summer term of Year 1. So now this has been pushed back into the second half of the autumn term of Year 2. And they will be screened as they would have been in Year 1. They will be asked to read 40 words, which are a mixture of real words and alien words, and your child will be told on each page which words are real and which are alien, so as to not catch them out. So sometimes the real words can be a little bit more tricky to read, so they're encouraged to say the word back and see if they can figure out what the word is. The screening will be administered by myself. We go off to a quieter place, so not in the classroom, so there's less distractions, and they're just encouraged to have a go at segmenting, blending, reading the word back to me as best as they can. They must read the word back. They cannot just segment the word and leave the sounds. That won't be accepted as a correct answer. So if you are reading with your child, just make sure if they are segmenting, saying the sounds back to you, make sure they blend the word afterwards and read it back, because that's where they score the mark. So just a few ideas how to help at home. I'm sure you don't need them. You're all experts. You've been working so hard with your children at home during school closures, but just a few bits on here to go over to make sure you're helping them as much as possible so they're ready for this screening. Just to mention as well that if they do not score the mark that they need to pass the screening in the autumn term, then they will resit it in the summer term with the current Year 1s. And this is standard practice anyway, so if they hadn't have passed it in the end of Year 1, then they would have had the screening again in the summer term of Year 2. So that would be a normal situation anyway. So just a few ideas, really help your child with that, and also making sure that you're using those pure sounds. So for example, instead of saying m, using this will really help the child to blend the words back together. Okay, so moving on to the end of Year 2 assessments. So these are what we would normally carry out in Year 2 anyway. So what they are, we have teacher assessments, and I will make a judgment on the progress of your child, and I will do this through evidence and assessments that I carry out myself throughout the whole year. So I will gather all of their writing, all of their reading evidence, their maths and their science, and I will have their books to refer to at the end of the year and make a judgment if they are working towards, if they're expected, or if they're greater depth. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, here are the levels that your child will be assessed at. There is also working at pre-Key Stage 1. That's also an area that we consider. And you will probably see the abbreviations on your child's report. We will also take into account their performance in the SATs test. Okay, so when we take the SAT, we actually have the whole of May to administer these tests. So I would choose when is the appropriate time to take these tests. And we can spread them out across the whole month if we need to make sure that we're ready to take them. So there are SATs tests for English reading, English grammar, punctuation, spelling and maths. There are no Key Stage SATs for English writing or science. As I mentioned in one of the previous slides, I gather all of my information from these from the work that we do throughout the year, so evidence that is shared through their books or on Seesaw. The Key Stage 1 SAT for English grammar, punctuation, spelling is not actually compulsory, so we've actually decided not to administer this one. Okay, here you can see the 4 papers that we administer to the children. So there are 2 English reading papers. The first one is a short text with questions. The second one is a longer text with separate questions. And the maths, there are 2 papers again. We have arithmetic and mathematical reasoning. The children will be familiar with what the papers look like, as they will see examples of them before they have the test. Okay, so we've got a bit more of a breakdown of what the test might look like here. So reading paper 1, we have the text with the questions together. It's 20 marks and takes approximately half an hour. The second reading paper is a text with a separate answer booklet. So there tends to be a couple of longer texts in there, and then a separate answer booklet where they will refer to the first booklet to answer their questions. This again is 20 marks and takes approximately 40 minutes. Here you can see an example of the reading paper 1. As you can see at the top, we've got the writing, and then the questions are listed underneath, so they're referring to that small piece of text at the top. Here is an example of reading paper 2. So there is a cutout here of two separate booklets. So the Blackbird and his wife on the left hand side, that is a separate booklet they will read from, and then they will take the information from that to answer in the second reading booklet. And onto the maths papers. So maths paper 1 is arithmetic. It's 25 marks and takes roughly 20 minutes. Maths paper 2 is our reasoning paper. This is 35 marks and takes approximately 35 minutes. Here you can see an example of maths paper 1. And here is an example of maths paper 2. Okay, so scaled scores. So I will mark all of the Key Stage 1 tests and calculate the raw score. So the raw score is when I mark the paper and I count up all of the answers they got correct. I then take those raw scores and I convert them into a scaled score. So the tests are developed each year to take to the same specification, but because the questions must be different, the difficulty of the test may vary slightly each year. This means we need to convert the raw scores children get to the test into a scaled score. So I work from a grid where I put in the children's raw scores in there and I take out their scaled score. So a scaled score of 100 will always represent the expected standard on the test. So the tests do not actually measure for greater depth. So if we get 100 on the scaled score, then they have passed that test. However, the Key Stage 1 assessment, the teacher assessment, will take into account how the child has performed throughout the whole year. So for example, your child may achieve 100 on the SATs test, but when teacher assessed, they are still working towards, because the evidence throughout the year does not prove they are expected. Likewise, your child may achieve less than 100, but I will have the evidence throughout the year to prove that they are working at the expected standard. Here is just an example of a child's results. So we've got, we can see on their teacher assessment result, they've received the expected standard, and you can see their test results and their scaled scores. So you can see this child has scored over 100, so they've received the expected in their SATs, and overall the teacher has given them the expected standard throughout. So your child is not expected to take a writing test. All of their writing throughout the year is taken into consideration. The writing that your child has produced throughout the year is then assessed against a series of statements for English writing, and that is where I'll get my teacher assessment judgment from. There are actually no science tests either, so this is all evidence-based as well. So we will take all the evidence from year 1 and from year 2 and assess that against the curriculum to see what the children have achieved. And we will take into consideration as well, they've also had a bit of time out of school with the school closures, but our science teacher is revisiting the areas that would have been missed before moving on to the year 2 statements. Okay, so your child may not actually know that they're doing a test at all. So we don't tell them that they're preparing for a test, we just bring it into everyday life. So we'll tell them that they're just doing another practice, or we're just working on another question, just to keep them at ease so they're not panicking about what's going to happen. If your child does worry, just encourage them to always try their best. It's nothing to worry about, and that they could just keep working as hard as they possibly can. Lots of praise and encouragement will work wonders. And if you do have any more concerns, then please do contact me and we'll see what we can do to help. Other ways to help: ensure your child has the best possible attendance at school. It's really important that they're there for everything. Make sure they have really good night's sleep and healthy breakfast to get them going every morning. And then all the homework tasks as well. There's lots of really good resources that we have in place to help you at home. So encouraging independent reading, using Reading Express, the spellings, which is on Seesaw, maths activity on Education City, and Times Table Rockstars, which is something we've started new in year 2, The children think it's fabulous and they'll have their logins to play at home as well. If you do have any questions after watching this slide, then please do direct anything to Pupil Admin and I will try to pick as many of them up and send out a frequently asked questions sheet for you the following week to hopefully answer everything that you need to know. Thanks for listening. Bye.